Hey guys, I want to read something for you that I wrote this evening about the case of Christopher Watts. Here goes. According to Cindy and Ronnie, when their son was physically assaulted by his wife, Christopher Watts and his wife weren't married yet, which, by the way, is often when the first act of violence occurs. Christopher Watts did not agree with something that his wife said, and she blew a gasket, physically assaulting him. And then she proceeded to knock his ass right out the door, physically, in the winter, barefoot, with no phone, no car keys, no shoes, and she locked the door behind him. And he stood there, knocking on the door, begging her to let him back into the house. As a writer and speaker on domestic violence and child abuse, oftentimes after one of my presentations, audience members share their own experiences and often claim they, quote, were only hit one time, either before getting married or in the first year of marriage. In many cases, one episode or the first episode of physical violence is all it takes for the abuser to take full power and control in the relationship by instilling the fear that you better not dare to make the abuser mad, or else. Ronnie and Cindy said that all of them, their son included, walked on eggshells around her daughter-in-law, not wanting to make her mad for the duration of that 5.5-year marriage. Friends of Christopher Watts say that when they met her, she was insulting toward them, downright rude. She insulted their homes, their dishes, everything. And that Christopher Watts would show up a day or two later to apologize for her bad behavior by claiming that, quote, she was just having a bad day. That's what abuse victims do. They make excuses for their abuser's bad behavior. Ronnie and Cindy also said that in their opinion, their son was being isolated from his friends and family right from the start of that relationship. Cindy Watts told me about the day she found her son anxiously hanging laundry on his birthday, missing out on his own birthday celebration while his wife sat right in the center of the group, enjoying the full attention. Cindy said, "Don't worry about the laundry. Come on and join us. It's your birthday." And her son said he couldn't because he had to get the laundry hung up in time and hung up just right before the clothes started to dry. Cindy said that her son appeared scared that he would not be able to get the clothes hung up on the hangers, quote, just right. Don't forget how Christopher Watts' wife called him a loser and boasted that he would do whatever she told him to do. Don't forget that she called the children monsters and would often appear as if she hadn't heard or cared to hear a word they had to say. You want a laptop? No, Bella was hungry. She didn't want a laptop. She wanted food. But Christopher Watts' wife didn't hear a word that poor little Bella said. Don't forget that when Christopher Watts' wife was tormenting Bella during the Whack-A-Daddy video, 2 tears, that there were at least 2 other adults present in the room who did not stand up to Christopher Watts' wife. What kind of message does that send to little Bella? That it's okay with the adults in her life for her mother to abuse her. Don't forget that when the children were hysterical at Christmas, searching for their father, wanting to know where their father was, that the show must go on, with Christopher Watts' wife ridiculing poor little Bella, while poor little Bella cried. Don't forget that while Christopher Watts' wife was, in my opinion, abusing poor little Bella by dehumanizing her with that water sprayed repeatedly right in her little eyes, that Bella ran toward her father, trying to run away from her mother. And she almost made her getaway. But her mother told her father not to let her in the house. And the door was shut before Bella could escape to safety, meaning that she was forced to endure standing there right in front of her mother, being repeatedly doused in the face with water, while her mother laughed, and while no doubt poor little Bella's heart sank, realizing that her own father was helpless to protect her. And don't forget that even before I had ever even heard of this case, that I was attacked and threatened that I was not, quote, allowed to discuss this case or to write any books about this case. Threats, attacks, harassment, dehumanization, that's what abusers do. In the case of Christopher Watts, if the gender roles were reversed, in my opinion, if Christopher Watts was the wife, nobody would be trying to pretend that he wasn't a battered spouse. Nobody would be trying to pretend that poor little Bella and Cece were not abused children. Nobody would be trying to pretend that Christopher Watts was just weak and that Christopher Watts' wife was just strong. Nobody would be laughing that she was Italian, so she just had a temper, which is, by the way, highly offensive to people who are Italian, especially those who are far more Italian than someone with somewhere between 1/4 to 1/2 Italian heritage to claim. Nobody would be trying to pretend away the way that Christopher Watts had no access to his own mail or to his own earnings. Nobody would be trying to pretend away the way that Christopher Watts' wife called him and their children derogatory names. Nobody would be trying to pretend that the day that Christopher Watts' wife told him he was not allowed to leave the house until he finished cleaning the basement was anything other than abuse. If the roles were reversed, if Christopher Watts was the wife in this case, nobody would be accusing Ronnie and Cindy of not liking their daughter-in-law simply because they have voiced their concerns over her bad behavior toward their son and their granddaughters. Nobody would be pretending that when Christopher Watts' wife verbally assaulted Cindy Watts, when she charged towards Cindy Watts, yelling at her and accusing her of attempting to murder one of the girls, with eyes so scary that the children present all ran and hid from her in total fear. Nobody would be trying to pretend that her behavior that day was that of a person supposedly concerned about nuts. Stop the pretending. Christopher Watts was, in my opinion, a battered spouse. And if the gender roles were reversed in this case, in my opinion, the case would have proceeded to trial. And, in my opinion, Christopher Watts would not have been found guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Abuse is never okay, whether committed by a female or committed by thugs ganging up to pretend that a certain female was really a saint. Those thugs are trying to pretend that Christopher Watts' wife wasn't really an abuser. Poor little Bella and Cece deserved far better treatment, in my opinion, during their lifetimes. And in my opinion, poor little Bella and Cece Watts deserved far better treatment after their deaths than for the thugs to continue to try to bully and harass and abuse others who are simply voicing the obvious. In my opinion, Bella and Cece Watts were abused by their mother all of their lives. And in my opinion, Christopher Watts was telling the truth when he initially insisted to law enforcement that it was his wife who murdered Bella and Cece. Just my opinion. What do you guys think? Do you think it's possible that Christopher Watts was telling the truth when he said that he did not murder his children, Bella and Cece Watts? Do you think it's possible that the person who so many people seemed to be afraid of for years could have lost her temper again and gone into some sort of rage when she realized that her husband was no longer under her total power and control? Do you think it's possible that she could have murdered poor little Bella and Cece and then committed suicide after Christopher Watts had left for work that day? Do you think it's possible that the neighbor, Betty, was spot on, questioning who drove that gray truck that Betty saw with her own eyes was at the house that day for many hours. She saw it there early in the morning at 5:15 a.m. She saw that it was still there at 6:45 or 7:15. I think it was 6:45 a.m. She saw that that truck was still there at 12 noon. Yeah, do I think that Christopher Watts' wife murdered Bella and Cece Watts? You're damn right I do. And I do believe she committed suicide afterwards. Because there's something that I do know from my extensive research specific to domestic violence and child abuse, that the most dangerous moment of an abusive relationship is when the abuser realizes they have lost total power and control.